When I found out my own sister stole my identity to take out a $90,000 loan in my name, I didn't call the cops right away. I smiled. Stay with me till the end, because what I discovered next changed not just how I saw my sister, but how I saw myself. It all started on a quiet Thursday morning. I was sipping coffee before work, going through my mail pile like I always do. One envelope caught my eye, a thick one from a loan collection agency. I almost tossed it aside, thinking it was a mistake. But curiosity made me open it. My heart sank as I read the first line. Your payment on the $90,000 personal loan is overdue. I froze. $90,000? In my name? I reread it 3 times. It had my address, my social security number, even my old workplace listed. For a second, I thought maybe someone had hacked me. I deal with financial crimes for a living, fraud, identity theft, scams, so I knew how these things worked. But something about the details felt too close, too familiar. I sat down at my desk and started digging. I called the number listed on the notice, pretending to be confused, just to get more information. They told me the loan was signed digitally 3 months ago, using my information. I asked for the IP address linked to the application. When they emailed it to me, my stomach twisted. The address wasn't random. It was from my hometown. I kept digging. Within an hour, I traced the digital signature and the linked phone number back to someone I knew better than anyone else. My own sister, Marianne. Or Mari, as everyone called her. For a long moment, I just sat there staring at the screen. I wanted to believe it was a mistake. Maybe she used my name for something small. Maybe someone else was framing her. But no. The paperwork, the fake business listed under my name, even the mailing address, all of it pointed straight to her apartment. A cold wave ran through me. I remembered the times I'd helped her with money, when she promised she'd pay me back but never did. The way she'd laugh off her debts like they didn't matter. I used to tell myself she'd grow out of it. But now, looking at the evidence, I realized she hadn't changed. She'd just gotten better at lying. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in the dark, reading the documents over and over. My job had taught me how to spot criminals from miles away, but I never expected to find one sitting across from me at family dinners. I didn't call the police. Not yet. I just whispered to myself, almost in disbelief. I investigate criminals for a living. I guess this time it's personal. Growing up in a small town in Oregon, it was always just the 3 of us, my mom, my sister Mari, and me. Our parents divorced when I was 12, and from that moment, I became more than a big sister. I became the second parent. Mom worked double shifts at the diner, and I was the one who made sure Mari did her homework, brushed her teeth, and got to school on time. Mari was 5 years younger than me, full of energy and charm. Everyone loved her. Teachers, neighbors, even strangers. She had this way of smiling that made you want to forgive her for anything. I used to envy that about her. She could mess up, cry a little, and somehow people would help her clean it up. Meanwhile, I was the serious one, the one who fixed things quietly. When we got older, that pattern never really changed. I went to college on scholarships and worked part-time jobs just to survive. Mari stayed behind, jumping from one short-term gig to another, always talking about the next big thing. There was always some plan that was going to make her rich, a boutique, an online business, an investment someone told her about. It never lasted. I still remember the first time I bailed her out. She was 21, and she called me crying because her credit card was maxed out and she couldn't pay rent. I sent her money without thinking twice. I told her, just be careful next time, okay? She promised she would. She always promised. Even as I built my career in financial crimes, I never looked too closely at Mari's mistakes. I told myself she just needed time to grow up. I wanted to believe she'd figure things out, like I did. Family is supposed to be where you can mess up and still be loved, right? That's what I told myself whenever she let me down. So when I found out she'd stolen my identity, the pain wasn't just about the money. It was everything that came before. All those years I protected her, believed in her, defended her when others said she was careless. I thought I was helping her stand on her feet. But maybe I was just teaching her that I'd always clean up her messes. It's strange how betrayal doesn't hit you all at once. It seeps in slowly. You remember the childhood laughter, the secrets shared, the way you used to hold her hand when she was scared of thunderstorms. Then you think about what she did, and it feels like those memories belong to another lifetime, someone else's family. I sat there for a long time, thinking about the girl I once tucked into bed and the woman she had become. I still loved her, I couldn't deny that. But love felt different now, heavier, sadder. It hurt in a way I didn't know love could. I slipped back into work mode the moment I decided to dig deeper. Years of experience as a financial crimes analyst had taught me that paper trails never lie. I started by pulling the loan documents from the agency's online portal and studying them like I would for any other case. The digital signature looked close to mine, too close. But the slant of the M and the angle of the strokes told me it was forged. It wasn't a random copy. Someone who knew my handwriting had mimicked it. The employment records listed me as the senior consultant for a firm I'd never heard of, Monroe Consulting Services. The name alone made my chest tighten. I looked up the business registration number. It had been filed 6 months ago, using my social security number, my date of birth, even a fake business address in Portland. Everything about it was carefully crafted, but not perfect. The phone number linked to the application matched one I recognized immediately, Mari's old number. It was one of those moments where reality felt like fiction. I sat back in my chair, staring at the screen, my mind racing. I'd handled dozens of fraud cases, but this time, every clue stabbed a little deeper. The lies, the forged forms, the fake pay stubs, all made to look like me. She had built an entire identity around my name. Still, I didn't confront her. Not yet. I knew how people reacted when they were cornered: panic, excuses, denial. I needed to see her face before I made my next move. So that weekend, I drove over to her apartment like nothing had happened. Mari opened the door with her usual smile, her nails freshly done, her hair curled like she'd just come from a salon. The first thing I noticed was the new designer purse hanging by the door, a brand she could never afford. Then the sleek car parked out front. It wasn't her old beat-up sedan. This one was new, shiny, expensive. She poured me coffee and chatted about how her new business deal was finally paying off. She talked fast, her words practiced, as if she'd been waiting for someone to ask. "You know, sis," she said, twirling her mug, "sometimes you just have to take risks to make it big." I smiled and nodded, pretending to be impressed. Inside, my heart was pounding. Every word she said confirmed what I already knew. I watched her talk about her clients and her projects, and all I could see were the forged forms sitting on my laptop. When I left her apartment that evening, the sky was already dark. I sat in my car for a long time before starting the engine. The truth was undeniable now. She wasn't being manipulated, she wasn't desperate. She had done it on purpose, calmly, methodically, and with full knowledge of who she was hurting. "You really did it, Mari," I whispered to myself, my voice breaking. I invited Mari over for dinner on a Friday night. She sounded cheerful on the phone, completely unaware that I already knew everything. I kept my voice calm, light even. "I made your favorite," I told her. "Chicken Alfredo and garlic bread." She laughed, said she'd be there at 7. I spent the next hour setting the table, not because I wanted the night to feel special, but because I needed it to feel normal. I wanted her to walk in and see nothing coming. When she arrived, she hugged me like always, her perfume filling the room. She looked relaxed, happy. Maybe too happy. We ate quietly at first, making small talk about work and life. I could feel my pulse pounding in my ears, every word she said grating against the truth I held inside. Finally, I stood up and walked to the counter where I had a small folder waiting. "I got some interesting mail last week," I said softly. Mari froze mid-bite. Her eyes flickered to the folder in my hand. "What kind of mail?" she asked, trying to sound casual. I didn't answer right away. I placed the first page in front of her, the loan statement with my name printed in bold. "This kind," I said. Her smile faltered. She glanced at it, then back at me. "That's not mine," she said quickly. "Maybe some scam." I placed the next document down, the digital signature report, the business registration, the fake consulting paperwork. One by one, I laid them on the table like cards in a game she was destined to lose. Her hands began to shake. "Alyssa, I can explain." "Go ahead," I said quietly. She started stammering, words tumbling out too fast. "I just needed a little help, okay? It was supposed to be temporary. I was going to pay it back as soon as the business took off." Her eyes filled with tears, but I'd seen too many fake apologies to fall for them. "Mari," I said, my voice trembling, "you built a company in my name. You signed my name on a $90,000 loan. That's not a mistake. That's a crime." She broke then, really broke. She covered her face with her hands and sobbed. "Please, Alyssa, don't report me. I didn't mean for it to get this far. I just wanted a chance. You've always had everything together. I just wanted to prove I could do something too. For a moment, my heart cracked. I wanted to reach out, to comfort her like I used to when we were kids. But then I looked at the papers again, the lies, the risk she put me in, and something inside me hardened. She grabbed my wrist, her voice desperate. Please don't ruin my life. I pulled away slowly, staring at her. The sister I once trusted with everything. There was no sign of remorse, only fear of getting caught. That's when it hit me. This wasn't about need. It was about greed. I thought telling Mom would help. I thought maybe if she heard it from me first, she'd understand. I didn't even plan to involve the rest of the family, but secrets like this never stay quiet for long. When I sat Mom down and told her what Mari had done, she just stared at me for a long time, her hands trembling around her coffee mug. That can't be right, she said finally. Mari wouldn't do that to you. I showed her the documents, the loan forms, the fake signatures, the business registration. I watched as her face went pale. She didn't say much at first, just whispered, "Oh my God." Then came the tears. But they weren't just for me. They were for Mari too. You have to forgive her, Mom said after a long silence. She's your sister. She made a mistake. A mistake? I repeated, my voice sharp. She stole my identity, Mom. $90,000 in my name. That's not a mistake. That's a felony. Mom flinched, but her eyes softened with that familiar pity that always showed up when Mari was involved. She's always been lost, Alyssa. You know that. You've always been the strong one. Can't you just help her instead of punishing her? Those words hit like a punch to the chest. Help her. As if I hadn't been helping her my whole life. As if everything I'd already done, all the money, all the chances, meant nothing. Within days, the rest of the family knew. My aunts called. My cousins texted. Some offered sympathy, but most of them had questions that felt more like accusations. Why didn't you help her sooner? You make good money, couldn't you just cover the loan? You know how Mari gets, she's not like you. Mari, of course, played her part perfectly. She told them I'd abandoned her years ago, that I was cold, jealous, heartless. She spun her lies with just enough truth to make them believable. She said I'd promised to help her with a business deal and then turned my back when things went wrong. And they believed her, at least some of them did. The same people who once told me how proud they were of my career were now whispering that I was too hard on my sister. It was like living in an upside-down world where the criminal was the victim and the victim was the villain. One night, Mom called again, crying. Please, honey, she said, don't report her. If she goes to jail, it'll destroy her. She's still your sister. I didn't argue this time. I'd already learned that logic didn't stand a chance against family guilt. I just stared at the wall, my heart heavy but my mind clear. If she wants to play the victim, I said quietly, I'll let her until she meets the investigator assigned to her case. I knew I couldn't file a report through official channels. It would raise too many questions, conflict of interest, ethics, internal review. I wasn't about to jeopardize my career for someone who had already stolen enough from me. So I decided to do what I did best, build a case so strong it would collapse on its own weight. I started gathering everything quietly. Every forged signature, every fake document, every trace of Mari's so-called business. I built timelines, matched IP logs, and traced payments to her personal accounts. I kept everything off my work laptop. Only handwritten notes and encrypted files stored on a personal drive. No one could trace it back to me. But I needed help. So I called Cole Henderson, a colleague I'd worked with for years. He was one of the few people I trusted completely, sharp, discreet, and loyal. I didn't give him all the details at first. I just told him there was a fraud case involving someone who had used personal information to secure a large loan. Cole didn't ask many questions. He owed me a favor from an old case I'd helped him close. Send me what you've got, he said. I'll keep it off the grid. Within a week, he opened a background fraud file under an alias. No mention of me. No direct links. The investigation looked like any other random identity theft case. Only Cole and I knew the truth. While we worked quietly, Mari was out there living her best life. Photos started popping up online. Her at restaurants, her at bars, smiling in new clothes, surrounded by friends. I even heard she threw a little celebration for her business's supposed success. The same business she built with my name. She looked so proud of herself. It almost made me laugh, not out of humor, but disbelief. She had no idea that every transaction she made, every payment she received, was being traced, documented, and tied back to her fake accounts. Sometimes I'd scroll through her social media and watch the videos she posted. Her laughing, dancing, showing off her new car. People congratulated her on finally making it. None of them knew what it cost her sister. At work, I kept my face neutral. Nobody suspected anything. Cole sent updates under the radar. Flagged accounts, red alerts, bank statements locked. Piece by piece, the net was closing. And through it all, I stayed silent. I didn't confront her again. I didn't warn her. I just watched. Each day, my anger cooled into something sharper, focus. One evening, as I looked through the growing file on my laptop, I caught a glimpse of Mari's smiling face in a photo frame on my desk. I turned it face down. Revenge doesn't always need noise, I whispered to myself. Sometimes silence works better. It started quietly, like any other morning. Only this time I knew what was coming. The case file that Cole and I had built was no longer sitting on a shelf. It had been passed to a small federal task force under a fake name, Operation Winter Bloom. It looked like a standard identity fraud investigation, just one of hundreds in the system. But this one was personal. Within days, Mari's accounts were frozen. Her business credit line vanished. Payments bounced. She couldn't access her checking account, and the car she was so proud of suddenly went into repossession status. I didn't have to lift a finger. The machine I'd helped build was doing its job, slow and methodical. The first call came on a Tuesday morning. My phone buzzed, and when I saw her name, I took a deep breath before answering. "Hey sis," I said, my voice calm. Her tone was shaky, panicked. "Alyssa, something's wrong. My bank accounts are locked. They're saying there's an investigation or something. Do you know anything about this?" I kept my voice even. "That's strange," I said. "Did you talk to your bank?" She started rambling, pacing on the other end of the line. "I don't know what's happening. They're saying it's some kind of fraud alert, and now the loan company is calling me nonstop. They think I'm someone else. Can you check? You work in this stuff. You can fix it, right?" I bit my lip to stop myself from laughing, because deep down, part of me wanted to. Instead, I said softly, "I can look into it for you, but you have to tell me what's going on. Be honest, Mari. Did you maybe use someone else's information?" There was a long pause. I could hear her breathing, shaky and uneven. Then she whispered, "Okay, fine. Yes, I took out a few loans in other people's names, but I was going to pay them back. I swear I was. I just needed time. You don't understand, I was desperate." I pressed the small recording button on my phone. "How many people, Mari?" I asked quietly. "3, she said after a moment. "Maybe 4. But the biggest one, yours, was supposed to help me fix it all." Hearing her say it out loud felt like a punch to the chest. There it was. The truth, raw and ugly, spilling from her mouth like poison. She started crying. "Alyssa, you have to help me. They're saying federal agents might come after me. You wouldn't let them take me, would you?" I closed my eyes, steadying my breath. My voice came out calm, almost gentle. "I wouldn't have to, Mari." There was silence on the line, just her soft sobs echoing through the phone. "You did that yourself." It didn't take long for everything to fall apart. Once the investigation started moving, it moved fast. Within a few weeks, Mari's entire life began to unravel. Her apartment was the first thing to go, seized for unpaid debt and suspected fraudulent assets. Then her car disappeared from the driveway, repossessed in broad daylight. Neighbors watched as a tow truck hauled it away while she stood on the sidewalk, shouting at the driver to stop. Her job didn't last much longer. The company she worked for received notice of the investigation, and that was enough. They called it a violation of ethical standards. She tried to spin it as a misunderstanding, but no one believed her anymore. The friends who used to fill her apartment with laughter and wine glasses stopped coming around. Her phone calls went unanswered. Her perfect little world had cracked open, and everyone could finally see what she'd been hiding. I didn't take pleasure in watching it happen, but I can't say I felt sorry either. Actions have consequences. I'd spent my whole career proving that. It was just different this time because the person facing those consequences was my own sister. Then the call came. My mother's voice was cold, shaking with anger. "You destroyed her life, Alyssa," she said. "Do you know what you've done? She's homeless, jobless, and terrified. You should have protected her." I tried to stay calm. "Mom, she did this to herself. She stole from me, from others." "I don't care about the money," she snapped. "She's your sister." That word, sister, suddenly felt like a knife. It used to mean trust, love, family. Now it just sounded like an accusation. I wanted to explain, to make her see the truth, but I realized it didn't matter. In her eyes, I'd betrayed the family by standing up for myself. So I said nothing. I just hung up the phone, tears burning behind my eyes. That was the last time we spoke. From that day forward, I cut off all contact. No calls, no texts, no messages. The silence was heavy, but it was the only way I could breathe again. I'd lost my sister and my mother in the same season, but somehow I still felt lighter. Some nights, though, when the house was quiet and the world outside was asleep, I'd sit alone at my desk and play the recording, Mari's trembling confession. Her voice cracked halfway through, caught between guilt and fear. Each time I heard it, I felt something complicated. Not joy, not relief. Something deeper. Maybe justice. Maybe grief. I'd close my eyes and listen to her words fade into static, letting the weight of it settle in my chest. Justice has a sound, I whispered to myself one night. And it's her voice shaking. Months passed before the trial ended, but the verdict was clear. Mari was convicted of identity theft and financial fraud. The words sounded clinical in the courtroom, but to me they carried the weight of everything we'd lost: family, trust, love. She stood there in front of the judge, head down, hair tied back, no makeup, no charm. For the first time in her life, she couldn't talk her way out of something. I was in the room, but not as her sister. My testimony came through under professional privilege, recorded and redacted. Nobody in that courtroom knew that the analyst who helped seal the case was the same woman she had stolen from. It was strange, watching her from a distance, hidden behind the layers of the system I'd helped build. I'd spent years protecting victims of crimes like this. Now, I was one of them, and also the one making sure justice was done. When the gavel fell and the sentence was read, 4 years in a state correctional facility, I didn't feel triumph, just quiet relief. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about closure. She needed to face what she'd done, and I needed to finally stop carrying the burden of her choices. After the trial, I kept to myself. The family never fully forgave me. My mother barely spoke to me, and the rest treated me like the villain who sent her sister to prison. I stopped explaining. Some people choose the version of the story that hurts less. I couldn't blame them for that. Therapy helped. I started going once a week, not to talk about Mari, but about me, about why I kept trying to save people who didn't want saving. Slowly, life began to find its rhythm again. I got promoted at work, moved into a small house outside the city, and filled it with peace instead of noise. I learned how to cook again, how to sleep without checking my phone for chaos. Then one afternoon, about 6 months later, I found a letter in my mailbox. No return address, just my name written in familiar handwriting. My heart sank before I even opened it. I didn't have to. I knew it was from her. For a few minutes, I sat on the porch holding it, feeling the weight of the paper. Maybe it was an apology. Maybe another excuse. Maybe a plea. I would never know. Part of me wanted to read it, to hear her side one last time. But the larger part of me, the one that had finally found peace, knew better. I walked inside, lit a small fire in the fireplace, and without hesitating, dropped the letter into the flames. The edges curled, the paper turned black, and the handwriting disappeared into ash. I watched until it was gone, the room quiet except for the soft crackle of the fire. I didn't cry. I just whispered to myself, some things don't need to be read to be understood. A year had passed since the trial, and life had finally found a quiet rhythm again. I had stopped checking my phone for drama, stopped expecting pain in my mailbox. My mornings were slow, peaceful. Coffee on the porch, a view of the trees, silence. Then one ordinary Tuesday, my phone rang. It was a number I hadn't seen in a long time. "Alyssa, it's Cole," the voice said. "I thought you should know, your sister's been released early. Good behavior." For a second, the air around me felt heavier. My chest tightened, and all those old feelings, anger, betrayal, guilt, tried to claw their way back. I closed my eyes and let the news sink in. Early release. Of course. Mari always found a way to land on her feet. I thanked Cole quietly, told him I appreciated the call, and hung up before he could say anything else. I expected her to show up eventually, maybe at my door, maybe through another letter. But days went by. Then weeks. No calls. No visits. Just silence. Until one evening, I came home to find a small brown package waiting on my doorstep. No return address again. Just my name, written in the same handwriting I'd burned months before. I carried it inside, sat down at the kitchen table, and stared at it for a while. Part of me didn't want to open it. Part of me knew I had to. Slowly, I tore the tape and lifted the lid. Inside was a plain white envelope, neatly sealed. I opened it, and what I saw made my hands tremble. A cashier's check. $90,000. My name on it. The full amount she had stolen from me. Beneath it was a small folded note. No dramatics, no excuses. Just a few simple words in her handwriting. I finally understand what I took from you. For a long time, I just sat there. No tears at first, just silence. Then they came, slow and uninvited. Not because of the money, not even because of the apology, but because, for the first time, I felt something that wasn't anger. It wasn't forgiveness either. It was something in between. A kind of quiet acceptance that the story had ended. I didn't call her. I didn't write back. There was nothing left to say. I deposited the check a few days later, not as repayment, but as closure. I donated half to a victim support fund. The same kind I used to help when I first started my career. That night, I sat by the window, listening to the rain, and thought about how strange it all was. How life circles back in ways you never expect. She stole my identity once, but I made sure she'd never steal my peace again. Do you think Alyssa made the right choice by cutting ties and protecting her peace? Or should she have given her sister another chance? Share your thoughts down in the comments. I'd really love to hear your take. And if stories like this speak to you, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next one.